Zug.
Hello pets, welcome back to BADragon. So today we're looking at... No, seriously, we're looking at orcs. And orcs are a common creature. I mean, they are anywhere from 2 to 6 hit dice usually, depending on which world you are in and how they're going to be used. But one thing that I've been trying to do is work on a 5e Spelljammer campaign, and it's really hard to do because they gave us almost nothing to work with. I've been trying to avoid reverting back to the 2nd edition and 2nd revised versions of the Orc and of Spelljammer to do this, but it's not working out too well. Back then they had a variant of the Orc called the Scroll, and it was in an adventure called Goblin's Revenge. You had to put goblins on the Scroll, which were an Orckin, in space, and they were raiding colonies and ships and shipping lanes and so on, and your job was to fix that. But when it comes to modern 5e, because they love their narrative so much, they didn't do a lot of the boring mechanics, as someone put it. So when it comes to orcs, you have basically Tolkien-style orcs. You have lots of them, they're dumb, they die in a couple of hits, and you've got a couple of leaders, and they give you examples of that. Like they have the War Chief, and they have the Orc Eye of Groomish, which is one of their gods, and you have the Gorg, which is basically their caster class, and they can be either shamans or mages. Shamans, priests, mages, and the like. But they don't really give you enough to work with from the story elements. They tend to skip that part. I mean, D&D is notorious for that in general. But when it comes to designing adventures and designing it around a specific race or a specific character, you don't have the tools. 5e basically ignores all that. I've looked at some of the adventure creation tools, and they're not good. They're not as in-depth as they used to be. You have to go to third-party groups who've made their own homebrew that works with 5e just to make it work. So, rather than doing that, I'm going to go over a few things that I'm thinking about doing, and maybe you'll have some ideas along the way.
Zug.
So the first we're looking at is the classic Orc, and what are their stats. So their stats are actually pretty good. I'll put it on the screen for you, for the Orc and the Orc War Chief, and we'll look at the others in a minute. But they're actually pretty decent. They give them a half, a 1/2 rating, which basically means the average player should be able to take on 2, maybe 3, depending on your level, orcs at a time. That's pretty fair. And the War Chief is, basically a 2 or 3 to 1. So 2 or 3 players in order to take him down comfortably. That's pretty fair. And they give him some decent perks. And they give him some decent stats. The Eye of Groomish, which you'll see on the screen now, and the Grog are also good. I mean, you'd expect the Gorg to have higher intelligence or wisdom stats, considering they're supposed to be casters. It even says in the description that they're supposed to be very intelligent. But for this, very intelligent is an 11 in wisdom and a 12 in intelligence. But still maintaining an 18 strength and an 18 constitution. That is not a caster, even by orc standards. That is just a bigger brawler. It's not what they talked about. So, and the Eye of Groomish, again, is supposed to be a religious leader, and he only has a 13 wisdom. So to make life easier, we're going to roll back the clock just a little bit. And we're going to look at one of my favorite books, which is from the revised edition, during 2nd edition. And it's the handbook, the complete book for of humanoids. I'll put the orc stats on the screen for you. This is for an orc player. Now, orc players and half-orc players were a little different than your traditional orcs. I covered this with the goblins too. But they have reasonable stats. And if you look at these stats compared to the stats that we had before, they're good. The stats they had before were average. Their strength and constitution were both high in most cases, which is proper. But they didn't have the intelligence that they should. In all cases, they made them out to be dumb. Even their casters were dumb. And that's not fair. So, if you look at these stats here, you can get Cleric, Shaman, and Witch Doctor, all of which you can get to a higher level. If you use modern rules, you can also give them the Wizard or Sorcerer package as well. You could do that, especially with the Orc and its design, where it says it's supposed to be a caster. You could do that. This would give you a more rounded character design. So if you're making your own characters, I recommend using these stats. Use those as a nice template, as an idea for how the 5th editions worked out. But these are better. These are better caps to work with. And that'll give you an idea on how to build a better orc character. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking for better characters, not just run-of-the-mill. Now for 5e, we have a handful of Spelljammer ships to work with. None of them make sense for orcs. I mean, if you have to go with a stock ship, I'd say use the Hammerhead or the Fish. Those are probably the two most logical, and they probably would work best in the case of the orc, but I would stick with the Hammerhead. It's light, it's durable, it's relatively easy to work with. They're not exactly smart, so a simple design for maintenance and repair is good. It's also relatively well armed. It's got 2 ballistas. It's got 1 ballista and it's got 2 catapults. Plus it's got a battering ram. So it's a well-designed machine and it works really well. Now in the past, and I'll put pictures of this one up, from the Goblins' Return rather, the Skoro had a ship called a Mantis, and I'll put the picture up of the Mantis so you can see it. And the Mantis was designed more like a cargo ship that had rams on the front. And because of that, it could run up to a ship, and then grab a hold of the ship so that the crew could board, loot, and do whatever they wanted to do without having to worry about too much damage to their own ship. It was designed to reach out, grab the enemy ship, and pull it into boarding range. Most ships don't do that. The ships in the past had their designs. They were designed for a function. They were designed to attack, defend. They were designed to hold, fortresses or act as citadels, or they had a function. They weren't just sail ships retrofit with the Spelljammer helm, which literally is all modern Spelljammer ships are. That's all they are. That's how they want to treat it. They just want to treat it as something that you throw away. We don't want that. We want personality. So this ship, and I'll put the specs up for you, but this ship is actually a really good design. It's designed well. It's counterintuitive when you realize exactly how the ship works, but it is very interesting. So that's the ship that we'd work with. So for the actual adventure campaign, keep them in their element. Orcs like caves, they like ruins, and they like other various underground settlements. We can work with that. We can give them either an asteroid, or we could give them an old hollowed out moon, maybe? Or one of the larger Citadel ships. That's something that you don't have in 5e, because they kind of cut those out. The Citadel ships were basically asteroids or asteroid-sized craft that had a Spelljammer helm attached. But they were redesigned for moving in space. And an abandoned one of those will work really well too. So I haven't decided exactly which way I'm going to go with that one, but we're going to go with one of them. So the Orcs should have a nice personality. So how do you do that? Well, inside their home, what do we use for their home? They're going to have their normal temple. They're going to have their king's chair for the war chief or war king. And they're going to have the normal amenities. They're going to have sleeping quarters. They're going to have their dining hall. They're going to have their warrens, which is where the female orcs stay, as well as the children. They might even have a small shipyard to repair the few ships they do have. But again, you're probably going to find not just orcs running all of this. Sure, the orcs are going to run the ship. They'll learn how to use the Spelljammer helm. They'll learn how to use all the equipment on board. But they're not necessarily going to be able to repair it. So when you get to like the dock area, you're probably going to find people in there. Humans, maybe some astral elves, maybe some gnomish tinkers or something in there, and they're the actual workmen that will repair the ships when they come in. They're slaves. They come out, they do the work, they repair it, they get fed, they get put back in their cells. When the ships come back in from the fight, they unload the cargo, they do the repair work, and so on and so forth. And the orcs are happy. So this is what I'm thinking. And I think this would be a good way to use them inside the Spelljammer campaign. But again, because there's not a lot that they give us to work with, we either have two choices. We either have to go back to the old materials, which I don't have a problem doing, but for some of you new game masters, you're going to have issues because you're probably not going to understand how to convert the materials. So I'm going to do that for the Scroll Mantis ship for you. So you can kind of get an idea how to do that. And I'll put that on the board after I've modified it. So you'll have to be able to see that. But also, you have to rely on more than what WotC is giving you. Because they apparently don't want you making good adventures. They want you to either invent it on your own, be extremely narrative, or worse, use their bad examples. And they are really bad examples. I've read through several different adventures, and they're kind of a decent storyline, but the story development, their design, a lot of these things just aren't as good as they should be. So we're going to leave it there. I want you to leave any comments. Let me know what you think. We'll go ahead and expand more on this series as we go. And we'll look at some more races. We'll look at some more equipment. Maybe we'll find something that will be useful. So let me know what you think, and we'll get back with you next week with something new. Have a good weekend.